Can you give us kind of a ballpark figure as far as assets go and complexity goes, as to someone who's watching this, one of our members is watching this and are saying, you know, I've got a lot of money, I think, is collaborative the way to go? What's the entry point level as far as assets go?
Well, it's not necessarily just having, you know, a lot of money. Let's say somebody has $1 million in a bank account,
Right.
but they don't really have, you know, any challenges, you know, financially. There's nothing there to really worry about because they have just, you know, a simple savings account for only 1%, let's say. They don't have any children. They've been married maybe for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't a whole lot of issues here that have to be worked with, although they have, you know, substantial amount of money in the bank. So in this case, collaborative divorce may not necessarily be something that they need. They could probably go to a mediator, you know, get a marital settlement agreement, decide how they want to work with the assets, and really not even get a financial professional or a mental health professional involved in something like that. On the other hand, if they have, you know, anywhere between, I'm thinking, $150,000, $250,000 in overall assets, a home, they've been married for, you know, maybe over 10 years, maybe even less than that, maybe five years or
Mm-hmm.
more. They have children involved.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some contentiousness in the marriage, and they really don't know, you know, what to do. They have questions. Then now you're talking about a scenario that requires, you know, other professionals, people that have the knowledge and the ability to do things in a way that can streamline the process. Now remember, it's sort of like building a house. You know, when you have a general contractor, they can basically build a house, but you don't necessarily want them to do the electrical work or the plumbing. You want to bring in the professionals to do that. Why? Because it's done less expensively, and it's done in a more time-efficient manner than just having the GC do all of that. Same with collaborative practice. If there are financial concerns, you want to bring in a professional, a CDFA, to do that type of work. And certainly, like I said before, when there are emotional issues, and I don't know of any divorce that, you know, emotional issues aren't a factor. Even if it's just, you know, one session
Mm-hmm.
with a mental health professional, they can help guide you and effectively, you know, keep you on track as the divorce coach in the process. So when I do collaborative divorce, I bring in my team pretty much all the time. I work as the financial neutral, I bring in a mental health professional, and certainly we have, you know, either a mediator or 2 attorneys working, you know, with the clients at the same time.
No, that's great, and I love your passion for this kind of work and what you're doing serving the community out there. Sometimes, though, like in my case, I didn't even know about collaborative divorce, by the way. And what I found out was my attorney was not collaboratively trained. So for our viewers out there, if you're thinking about going down this road and your attorney's saying, no, we're not going to do collaborative divorce, I just don't believe in that, maybe it's because they're not collaboratively trained. So you're going to have to go out and find one that is, if you're going to use an attorney. So it's very important that you find the right team and hook up with these guys.
Right. One of the things I wanted to bring up is something called informed consent. Attorneys really have an obligation, a legal obligation, and an ethical and moral obligation to advise you of all of your options when you go for a divorce. The problem is, and really and truly it boils down to income for the attorneys. And it's, you know, hard to say this, but a lot of them really want to put people through a structured emotional process so that ultimately they keep the time clock running and they can make more money, so they will poo-poo collaborative practice. One, because they don't think they can make as much money in the process, which has been shown not necessarily to be the case, because while they may not make it on one case, they can make it up on 3 or 4 cases if they do the collaborative process. It's sort of a paradigm shift for how they need to think and structure in a caring attitude for their clients, as opposed to a maybe a selfish money incentive attitude that some of them have. The other thing is that, you know, collaborative process does take time to learn, and being trained is very, very important, because it does deal with good communication skills for both you and your clients, and making sure that you care about the other side as well as advocating for your own. So attorneys need to really go through that process, and it does take a little knowledge of the attorneys to choose. When somebody comes to me for my guidance, I will typically recommend a few attorneys that they can go to that I know that I've worked with in the past, that I know are collaboratively trained, and that can work on our team to help that couple get through it effectively.
Well, that's terrific. What's the main role of, or the process, when it comes to the certified divorce financial analyst in a collaborative divorce? What do they do? Elaborate on that, if you would, please.
Well, I prefer when a person goes for a divorce, if they seek out their attorney first, then the attorney refer them to me immediately. Because what I can do is start gathering all of the information. Before we even start having meetings, 5-way meetings, 6-way meetings with the clients.
Wait, hold on. What's a 5-way meeting or a 6-way meeting?
A 5-way meeting, 6-way meeting are when you have the clients, each of their legal representation, that would be 4, myself would be 5 as the financial neutral, and having the mental health professional or not there as the 6th person. So 5-way, 6-way meetings, that brings in all of the professionals, including the clients. Because again, in the collaborative process, everything is transparent. We talk about everything. The clients know what we know as we know it. Certainly we'll have professional meetings as well to discuss what the client's issues are. But eventually, the clients will be involved in all that, and they'll know what we know, so that we're all on the same page.
So going back to the CDFA, what's their role? What's the value that they're bringing to the table?
Well, we of course gather all the information. We are really the true, if you want to say, neutral in the process, because we work with both clients at the same time. Sometimes, and this has happened once so far that since I've been in practice, we've had 2 mental health professionals, one for each client as the divorce coach is going through. But typically there's 1 mental health professional, but the financial neutral is really the true neutral. We work with both because we have to gather all of the assets so that we understand how to make appropriate recommendations to equitably divide those assets. And because we're not under the constraints of the courts, we can be highly creative in how to be fair and open and honest with the clients. For instance, if a client has a 401k plan, what the courts typically will do is say, we need something called a quadro, which is a qualified domestic relations order, to split that 401k, because it's ERISA guidelines and federal guidelines to make that happen. But what if, let's say, the husband had the 401k and the wife has an IRA worth about the same? Well, in the collaborative process, we could say, since it's worth about the same, the tax ramifications we can look at, see what the investments are. If it's ultimately similar, we could say, okay, you keep your IRA, you keep your 401k, and boom, we're done. What the courts would do is say, legally we have to do a quadro for the 401k, legally we have to do a quadro or a retirement letter for the IRA, split those, you get half of her IRA, you get half of his 401k, and you move forward that way. It doesn't make sense.
No.
It wastes time.
Right.
And certainly money, because it costs more money to create the quadro and the retirement letters if necessary.
And I like what you said about being creative. A certified divorce financial analyst can be very creative to create a fair and equitable settlement. They're creating actually what I call a divorce blueprint. It's a financial plan. Many of you have a financial plan, let's say for retirement. Well, you need to have a plan for your divorce, so they can look at all the intricacies of a divorce, the financial aspects, as we just discussed, splitting up assets and liabilities. We got to look at the debts, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And certainly we don't even stop there. We project in the future what may happen. As long as things remain consistent, at least we can give them a projection saying, well, this can go out for 20 years and you'll still be fine financially. Or, with this type of settlement, you may run out of money within 2 years. How do you feel about that?
Right. So what's nice about doing this kind of work, by having that divorce blueprint where they can see the money, then they can make a decision, yes, this is a fair and equitable settlement, and then you can get the deal done much, much faster. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to be using yellow pads and whiteboards and all of that, like in most cases, and you're not going to get the case settled as quickly, and it's going to be more expensive.
One of the first questions I ask when clients come to me, wanting a collaborative divorce, is what I call the Dakota question. You ever see the old Dick Tracy movies or the Green Lantern? They have this ring, and you have to tell the truth. When you're looking into the ring. So the Dakota question that I have is, what would you like to have happen with this divorce. And then I sit down and listen.
Right.
And I don't say another word.
Mhm.
And I try to extract that information from both clients because they may have similar needs and wants. Quite often I find that they have different needs and wants. And that opens up a whole line of communication and enables me to really understand what is meaningful to the client financially, on a financial perspective. For example, years ago, it was very, very important for, let's say, the wife to have the marital home to
Right.
raise the children in.
Mhm.
Well, nowadays, most people don't want the marital home
Right.
because they find it's more of a liability than an asset. And we have to work around the current economy because of that. How can we make it affordable for one or both parties, to be able to afford the living expenses,
Right.
after all of this? Sometimes it means we need to sell the marital home so they can move forward. Sometimes one can live in it if they could afford it, and the other we have to figure out ways of making sure they have enough income to live and do what they need to do in life. So it becomes creative, it becomes very interesting, and I love what I do.
Well, we can tell, and I could talk with you all day about this. And in closing, I want to thank Alan for taking the time to get together with us to discuss this very important topic, collaborative divorce planning.